Hello, I am back with another vlog, another vlogging journey here. So today I was just so inspired by God. When I say inspired by God, like I truly mean that, God just inspires my spirit. And there are just these little things that He's just been bringing to my heart, to my spirit, just to share just a word of encouragement um, with you guys. Really, this is more of a word for people who are in the caregiving journey. I haven't really touched a whole lot about that. That's because that world just seems like years ago. That I just kind of left that world behind, and I have continued to write new life chapters. And so, like, as I write new life chapters, I kind of just close the doors behind me and I just keep moving on. And so I haven't really talked about the caregiving aspect of my life and what that was like. And today that just kind of came back to my thoughts. I really hope this is inspiring for somebody who is in that caregiving journey. Let me tell you, it's not forever. Like, it's a season. And I did a vlog just the other day, and I was talking about this caregiving journey that I was on, and I just started realizing, like, oh man, like there are more people out there who truly are just starting this journey, or they're just about to, or they're right in the middle. And like, oh my goodness, there is a lot that goes into caregiving. And I forget sometimes how important that is, just because I'm no longer in that season. My life has moved on. The Lord has since taken both my grandparents. And so that journey, that chapter was finished. And like, oh my goodness, sometimes I look back and I can't believe that those life chapters are finished. Like, what it was like to walk that journey out with both my grandma and my grandpa, and what it was like to, just have this very short amount of time to, walk with my mom when she was, when we first found out that she had MS, and that whole journey, and kind of walking through that season with her. And now that season is complete, and the Lord has taken her home. And so here I am, and in my 30s, and I have 3 little ones, and this is my new life journey. This is where I'm at. This is where I am starting to write my own life story, which is completely separate from the caregiving journey that I had previously been in several years ago, and is completely separate from even the journey of just having walked with my mom through that very short season of her life, just walking through MS and cancer, and so there's that whole chapter with that too. But today I was I was doing the dishes, putting them away, and I was trying to get this mug to like fit in the cabinets. And it was like, there's not enough room for this mug. So I'm just trying to fit it where I can. And the Lord just like inspired me from that moment. Like, the word just came to my heart, like, make room. And so that is really what I want to share with you. It's make room. Make room. Make room for whatever it is that that journey with caregiving can be, because caregiving can be both a burden, and it can also be just a time of really learning something about yourself and about somebody else. It can really be, if you really choose for it to be, if you allow it to be, it can be a journey where, when you look back, you're really going to treasure like the time that you did take to um, give into somebody else's life, to plant into somebody else's life, to give them of your time and of your attention and of your love, and to just water who they are in that season of their life, because we know that their life is so short lived. Their life is not going to continue to, just go on and on and on and on. Like at some point, you're going to hit that season in your life where it's like, now the person that you've been taking care of for a long time is now in hospice care. And that's a whole nother journey, because that can go on for a year. It can go on for a year and a half. It can go on for a half a year. I mean, just kind of depending on how fast the person declines, or whether they're able to kind of just keep rolling. And I feel like when that chapter does kind of start drawing to a close, you are at that point where you're like, I'm both tired and energized at the same time, because you have been doing this thing for a while, and it is tiring and it is exhausting. But then once you do start walking them towards the gates of heaven, there is kind of that sense of like relief and sadness and grief at the same time, that it's like, whew, that was a long track, that was a long journey, that was so hard, that was a long walk with them. But then it's also like bittersweet, because it's like, you also hate to lose the person too, so it's like, and so there's a sense of like the heavier burden being kind of lifted off your shoulders, to where you're not shouldering the weight of the caregiving journey as much as you would have been before hospice care coming in. And hospice care is just such a great and unique and wonderful tool for us to be able to have available to us, if you're able to get a hold of that in your life, and be able to connect with a great hospice care team. That is the best support you could possibly ever give to yourself and to your loved ones, because you have a team that's constantly checking in with you. You can ask questions. They're available whenever you need to ask a question, or to call with any of your concerns that you may have. They're available 24/7. They will come to your house. They will make sure that you're okay, that your loved ones are okay, and they really check in with you and your family members. And it's just a wonderful overall health and wellness care support team that I would highly recommend. We never went without it. I'm grateful for the hospice team that we had available to ourselves during that time. I don't know what we would do without them, because they were just such a huge support to our family, and they really just made the transition between where we had been to really closing out those chapters in our life in such a way that it was just a smooth change in our life. It really made those changes just really smooth. It made it so that there were really no complications. It was just a very easy change in our lives, and an easy change of pace for all of us, and we just really felt that support. But I mean, when you are in that caregiving journey, and you really haven't been in it long, and it's kind of a new thing, sometimes there's just so many questions, like, well, where is this journey leading me? Where am I going? Who am I during this time? Am I just a caregiver? Your dreams, your life goals, your visions are kind of just like put on hold for a little bit, because you're just in the throes of what this other person really needs. And so there's just not a lot of room for self. And it's just so important to get around people who are going to be a great support system to you during that time outside of a hospice care, when you're not in that season of caregiving. But just having someone available to like be kind of like a kind of someone that you can connect with. They're a great accountability team, that can come in and say, how are you doing, and how can we help support you. Um, Sometimes it's not always easy to get away, just because financially speaking, it does take a lot of money to pay for um, professional caregivers who know what they're doing, who can come in, and if you don't have family members around, who can really just be that support team, like, because we all live all over the place, and um, it's just important to always check in with yourself. If you don't know to do that, then yeah, it's so easy to like lose your identity to the journey of caregiving and all that comes with. And so what I really wanted to share was, make room for that. If that is where you're at, make room for it. Like, instead of trying to figure out, like, how does this person fit into my life? Like, how do I make this my life when I am having to give up everything I am for this life? I mean, that's really, really, really hard. It's like it is like being a parent, only to a much older person. And, that it's just a different arena of life. And that's okay. And yes, it's very difficult and very challenging. But make room, make room in your life to kind of say, okay, you know, it's not how does this person fit into my life? It's more, how do you fit into their life? How do you maneuver things around to be all of who you are? How do you maneuver everything in such a way that you can be all of who you are within that place and within that journey and fit into their life? It's how you write yourself into the story of their life, because at some point their life's chapter will be written, and you will write that chapter with them, whether you like it or not, whether you believe it or not. You will write that chapter with them to the very ends of their very last breath. So how do you write your own self into their story, into their life? How do you make room for yourself to fit into the story of their life? Because sometimes we have to make room for things, that we would never have expected. When I first started this caregiving journey with my grandparents, it really started with us moving from the Imperial Valley to San Diego County. And it was at a very young age that I was moving out of my parents' house and into my grandparents' house. And so even though it was next door to my parents, living with my grandparents, I wasn't in or under my parents' roof. I was under my grandparents' roof. And so my caregiving journey started really very young in life, and just kind of watching to be sure that they were fine, that they were safe, that they weren't leaving the stove on, and walking away, like these little things, because they were still able to have their independence and to have their life, but there were these little things that we had to watch for, to be sure, like, okay, they're fine, they didn't fall, they didn't trip. These little things that for us are nothing, because we don't forget to turn off the stove, and we don't just trip over like a rug. These are these little things that they really needed help with to start. And so that was kind of that. But as we started to kind of progress into the caregiving journey, it wasn't how did they fit into my life, it was how did I fit into their life, and how did our lives fit together. And then it wasn't long before my parents moved in and we were all together, and then it was just all of us and my grandparents, and that was just kind of that was that, and we lived with them until they passed away. and the Lord was good and throughout all of that season. And yeah, it was really difficult. It was really, really, really hard. It was hard work. It was mentally and emotionally exhausting at times. Um, but that journey didn't last long. And so I can truly say, like, if you can fit your life story into where you're at, into the story of what that is for you as a caregiver, you can write a really, really beautiful story with your life. Caregiving does not have to be what the overall picture is. It doesn't have to be like that's what it looks like that's it. It's just caregiving done. That's the end. Like, no, like you can really write a story that is so life changing and beautiful, and a story that changes lives not only through how you care for someone, but how they also change your life in return in the way that caregiving does give something back to you. It does, at the end of the day, it gives you that sense of like reward, that you know what, that was hard, but we did it together and we accomplished that togetherness. Caregiving gives something back in that you really learn the value of caring for someone other than yourself. You learn to give of yourself in a different capacity, in a different way, in such a way that at the end of the day, like, that is one of the most rewarding things that I think you can get from caregiving, because it's just not about you. The story of caregiving is never about us. It's always about the other person, and then how we choose to write our story into that, how we choose to make room for that story within our lives. It could be so easy to feel like when you're in that caregiving journey, like, oh my gosh, my life is being just like taken over by this caregiving thing, and oh, it's so awful, and I don't have a life anymore, and it's just like, but if you view it from that negative perspective, it really starts to just rot the wood in the foundations of your home, because the focus is so on like, I really just hate this, and like there are moments like you're gonna like hate it, just this is awful, it's the worst, it's a lot. But if you keep your focus on God, and you keep your foundation the Lord, and you just ask the Lord, like, God, how do I dig my heels in deep here and stand in the position to which you've called me. God can supply the strength and the endurance to go the distance, and to make that journey, as difficult as that is. And to make room, and to allow the Lord to help you to make room in your heart for that, because it doesn't last long, and it is over. That God would help you to see, where can I kind of do what I need to do to live my life, and to live in this place of caregiving as the caregiver. But also, how do I make room for this story in my life? How do I maneuver things to fit? Because it's not really so much about like just putting your stuff on hold, because I don't believe that you have to do that as a caregiver. I believe that there is room for yourself within that story as well. It's just how you make room for it. Sometimes the burden of caregiving on its own, it's so overwhelming, and sometimes it's just such a huge burden that in itself just kind of blocks our view. Like, kind of just clouds our view so that we're not able to really see clearly, like, okay, how can I live my life better during this time? How can I make room within places within myself and my life for just all those things that I would like to do to live out my life? How do we include one another in the story? Because at some point, yeah, they will be going home and they won't be with you anymore. And it is going to be this season of rewriting your own life chapter and trying to figure out where you go from there. And what are you going to do with that now quiet, empty space? So, yeah, it does end up becoming a whole new life without them. But in the meantime, how do you make room for someone else in your life? It's a short season. It's not, it's not forever. How can our attitudes be different? How can we change? I chose to see it as an opportunity, and it really did become a very rewarding thing for me. And I look back now with gratefulness that I chose to meet that season with just a heart of love and to just embrace it. So, like, making room for your caregiving journey is embracing your story. It's embracing the person you're caring for. It's embracing who you are, not only as a caregiver, but for who you are as a person. Because there's so much more to you than just the caregiver of the home. And so I encourage you to make room. I encourage you to make room for all those things that caregiving can give to you as a person, that caregiving can bring to the whole family, to the person who is being cared for. It truly is its own story, and it can be a beautiful story. It's just choosing how you make room for that story in your life to be a beautiful story. Because let me tell you, at the end of the day, looking back, I'm so glad that I walked that out. I am so glad that I lived that journey of my life, because I can never get it back, like, ever again. It's gone, it's over, it's shut. But I made room for it, and it made room for me. And when we make room for things in our life, no matter what it looks like, no matter how difficult, no matter how challenging, when we decide to make room in our hearts for those difficult stories, those types of difficult stories, no matter who you are, you can finish that chapter well. And that's what I really encourage you to do. Finish that chapter well. You will never, ever, ever regret it. Looking back, you will feel that you will have a peace in your heart, a peace in your spirit, that you really did go the distance, not only for yourself, but for your loved ones. And then later down the road, for your family members who need you to be present, who need you to be alive and thriving within who you are as a person, deep down on the inside of who you are. Don't stop planting good things within who you are. Plant everything that needs to be planted, then water those things that need to be watered. Get the support team that you need. Get the accountability partners in your life to help you just like stick to those goals that you have in mind for yourself, whether it's maybe you need to do a little gardening, like just getting outside for a little bit. Maybe it's going for a walk. Maybe it's, doing some painting. Maybe it's just picking up the phone and calling a really good friend and just giving yourself that like 15-minute girl chat to just fellowship with the Lord and you just get that encouragement that you need for your spirit. Start a new hobby if you're able to, even if it's a home hobby. do something that gives you just that 5 minute time to yourself, even if it's sitting at the table and you're doing something productive for yourself, and the person that you love and that you're caring for is in the same room, but maybe they don't need your attention 24/7. Maybe they can sit in wherever they're sitting and be perfectly fine, and you have that time to now do a puzzle or maybe color in a coloring book. It's just finding a way to just write the story of your life. you know Find whatever that is for you and write it well, so that when you do look back, you're gonna have just a really great feeling. Like, it's gonna be rewarding, and you really want to feel that at the end of the day, that that journey was not lived in vain for yourself or for anybody else involved in the caregiving journey of this whole process, because it isn't forever. I know this is long, guys. I'm sorry. I just have so much I just out of my heart want to share. I know what this journey is like. I know what it's like to walk through it. I know what it's like to write the end of that chapter with the people I love. And when you write that well, you will never look back on life and regret it. So make room, whatever that may be. The little things that you have to change, the little things you have to do, the little sacrifices add up to nothing. Because at the end of the day, it is nothing, especially when those chapters have been written and you don't get to write them over again. So make room.